Hello everyone, this is another ACES how-to video about being serious for solar PV panels. I'll take you through some slides about the technology as well as some information of how you can budget for them. So first, let's talk about the benefits of solar voltaic panels, solar PV panels. Firstly, they help with low or no cost electricity during the day. So it all depends on who owns the solar panels as to whether it's low or no cost, but essentially the electricity is being generated right at the school rather than coming from the national grid. Secondly, solar panels reduce carbon from reduced electricity from the national grid, and is also a very visible improvement that can inspire the local community, staff and students to consider this measure themselves. Thirdly, they can be designed, an array of solar panels can be designed for storage of surplus electricity and also can potentially help decarbonize heating systems. So if you're planning solar panels, here's some tips to consider. Firstly, panels are ideally south-facing on a pitched roof or any flat roof. You can also have east or west facing or anywhere between south, east and west facing. So north facing solar panels in this hemisphere are not possible to generate. Secondly, the roof underneath where the solar panels will go needs to have no urgent leaks or other roof issues, such as structural considerations, which is part of the process. It doesn't mean that the solar panels will no longer be accessible should leaks appear. It just simply means that ideally you want that work completed before you put solar panels on. Someone needs to check, a solar panel contractor will do this, that there are no obvious shadows or obstructions to the solar panels as the sun moves through the sky, such like trees or overhanging bits of the school, for example. So solar panels are designed by solar panel contractors. We recommend that once you identify the possibilities, that you consider some of the other technical issues. So panels work by producing electricity from sunlight. That electricity is converted into from direct current to alternating current, which is what the rest of your school uses. This image on the left is what an inverter, as they're called, which is installed at the same time, looks like. Not surprisingly, in the United Kingdom, there's more sun in the summer months. In fact, August is probably one of the best months for solar PV panel. But it's worth noting that school is often not doing very much with electricity if you've certainly taken a lot of energy efficiency measures. At any time there is surplus electricity, for example, on weekends or at very sunny, hot periods when the school is not in session, any surplus electricity generated by the panels is exported through an export meter. This is a price paid through your electricity supplier, ranges from about 3 to 3.5 pence, although some of you may be on a different tariff for that. The point is, it's a much lower value than what you're currently paying for electricity. So you want to maximize what you're generating for use on site. So it is possible to use as much as you possibly can in the design of solar panels. Last point here is that battery storage is now available, which means installing a battery in the school to store that surplus power rather than exporting it and use it after hours, after dark. The batteries themselves are quite expensive at the moment. That's more due to demand than to the technology. So it is worth keeping an eye on and discussing this, whether it's suitable for your school. Let's have a quick look about issues around budgeting. The chart here on the left, the table shows what I would call small, medium, and large arrays. These will differ from school to school and will be based on the number of panels and the amount that they can generate. But for a small array, you're looking at generation between, and this is, I'm using county council figures of current figures for electricity. This is obviously subject to change. Of between 560 to 1,200 pounds per year worth of electricity, with an initial cost, and this is at time of recording, of between 8,000 and 13,000. And you can see the other sizes go up, and the amount of savings go up with that. It's worth keeping in mind that what's driving the prices of solar panels is the availability and supply, and many contractors are finding that they are absolutely run off their feet for work. So that is affecting prices. Electricity is a different area. We don't know exactly when electricity prices will peak, and indeed if they will come down at some point. Certainly that shouldn't put you off looking into this. So a couple of other points to consider. The design will determine how many solar panels. That'll obviously be a function of both the roof area available, the unobstructed area available, and what is appropriate for the current and potentially the future electricity demand in the school. This will also determine how many inverters you need. Often one is suitable, but sometimes a second or even third inverter needs to be installed. And finally, if there will be battery storage, where exactly will that be placed? Inverters are often placed near to the electricity meter, but with many schools, there may be an issue. These will all be issues that, technical issues that will affect the price somewhat, but also will be determined by design. Finally, there may be other costs in the process. Most of the prices we've quoted here would include any surveys. Sometimes accessibility, a large amount of scaffolding, for example, may up the price. Sometimes a wiring issue, particularly to do with the meter, may affect the price. And whether any planning permission is needed can also affect that. It's also worth noting that maintenance of the panels over time, they need a bit of a clean every now and then, should be considered in budgeting for panels. Many of you will have heard of the Low Carbon Hub, who are our partners delivering ACES with EIE at Oxford Brookes, and their community solar offer, where they raise local investors, funds from local investors, and use that to install panels. They have a long and successful track record of installing them on schools throughout Oxfordshire. However, before you pursue that any further, they have a checklist of what needs to be in place and ready from your end before you approach them for a community solar panel, a community funded solar panel, community invested solar panel. So first and foremost, you have to have south-facing roofs, ideally in good condition. If they're mainly east and west facing, there has to be a lot of them, but ideally south-facing. Secondly, they recommend having at least 250 square meters of roof space. If you have no clue, you can measure this online with some online tool, or the rule of thumb that we have used in the past is about a tennis courts area of roof space. Thirdly, as a school, your energy use needs to be in excess of 100,000 kilowatt hours. So do have a look. And if you don't know this, do contact ACES. We have some information for most of Oxfordshire's maintained schools. You have to be the owner of the site or have a 10-year long lease. Essentially, how this has transpired is that if there's an issue with entering a contractual agreement with the Low Carbon Hub, it will not be possible to do so at schools. And unfortunately, that means most of the Church of England schools have a rather complicated arrangement already in place in terms of leases and ownership, and it's not possible to put solar panels through a third party on their site. And finally, the senior management team and the governors need to support the solar panels. So they have to have been brought in the loop and understand the previous points, and these all have to be in place. So if you do make this cutoff, good for you. We're very happy to continue and progress. So please, if it's yes to all of the above, email us at ACES, and we will have an early 2023 event for all the schools where this might work, where the Low Carbon Hub can explain the offer further. It's given now in short on the right-hand side. So the offer would include using their community investment fund to install solar panels at no cost to the school. They will also maintain the panels and the insurance over the period of the lease. They will provide annual reporting on how the panels are functioning. And the main incentive for schools to do this is that when you enter an agreement, you do so at a fixed electricity price, ideally equal to or less than what you're already paying in electricity, although this somewhat depends on both what the market is doing at the time and where you are with electricity prices when you enter the agreement. Hopefully that's all clear. If there are any questions on this, please do get in touch with us through the ACES website. So that's a lot of information about solar panels. Just to summarize, if you're thinking about solar panels, review all the issues we mentioned previously to identify whether they might be suitable at your school. Based on the area and obviously the orientation that is possible, consider the financial route that you might go. It may be possible to fund schools from your own school budget. If so, then I would suggest the next step is to engage a photovoltaic contractor to pay for a design. If you just expect them to come to talk to you about panels, they're incredibly busy at the moment, and it may take months before you hear them. But if you pay for a design, once you have the designs, you can then go to tender to any contractor directly. Similarly, if you are not able to fund for these or meet all the criteria we mentioned for the Low Carbon Hub to invest in solar panels at your site, then do contact us and we will get you to the next step on that route. That's everything we're going to talk to into this how-to video. Thanks for paying attention, and please contact ACES if you have any further questions.